Far North Queensland is an amazing location for landscape photography. It's very mountainous, it's got jungles, seascapes, plenty of opportunities to get some great images. And in today's video, I'm going to go over my top 5 locations for landscape photography in Far North Queensland, which is specifically the Cairns region. Now, it was pretty hard to make this list because there's so many amazing locations. So it took me a while to kind of narrow it down, but this is what I came up with, and these are in no specific order. Now, number 1 would be the Daintree Rainforest. Now, the Daintree Rainforest is part of the oldest rainforest in the world that stretches across Far North Queensland, and it's an amazing location. It's in the northeast, north of Cairns, about an hour and a half to 2 hours ride. And where I usually go is to Noah Beach. It's a great campground there because some of the accommodation up in the Daintree can be pretty expensive. So I usually would just camp on Noah Beach, and there's a bunch of footpaths with access to the beach. So I'd kind of go through there, and for sunrise and sunset, I'd do some photography. And if you go on Noah Beach South, there's a nice inlet, and there's amazing photographic opportunities there. It's so picturesque. You've got the beach and the river going into the jungle and the rainforest. And you cross a ferry to get up to Noah Beach, but there are other access locations without having to cross the ferry, and the ferry goes across the Daintree River. Like Mossman Gorge is one, which is pretty popular, but I prefer the more kind of trekkless areas. So that's why I kind of go on the Noah Beach area and then stay to the north, kind of up by Cape Tribulation as well. So my location number 2, it's actually not a location at all, but rather a drive, and that would be the 43-kilometer drive from Palm Cove up to Port Douglas. Now, the road pretty much follows the ocean, and it twists and turns, and then there's mountains on the left, ocean on the right, and there's a lot of public beaches and pull-outs with access to beaches. And so a lot of times, if I didn't know where I wanted to photograph, or I was kind of feeling lazy and didn't want to do some hiking, I would just drive that right at sunset or sunrise, and then get out when the light's getting good and find a composition. So there's plenty of opportunities there because the mountains literally run right into the ocean. So you'll have mountains on the west side, ocean on the east, and also it's right by the Great Barrier Reef, which is pretty spectacular. And these beaches aren't very populated either, so a lot of times, well, most of the times I actually had to be on the beaches and there would be not another soul there. Just me and my camera just taking nice seascape images. And though the water may look inviting, it's not really a good idea to swim in there because there are a bunch of crocs that inhabit the waters, as well as the Urichangi jellyfish. So I didn't do much swimming, but I did do a lot of photography. So I can't recommend enough just cruising that drive a couple times for sunset or sunrise. Sunrise is a little better because it is on the east side of Australia, so as the sun comes up, it'll illuminate the mountains, but I was still able to get some pretty good sunset shots because I was kind of lazy and didn't always feel like getting up for sunrise. So location number 3 would be Barron Gorge National Park. Now, Barron Gorge National Park is located only about 25 minutes west of the Cairns CBD, and it's a nice mountainous jungle national park with a bunch of waterfalls and some nice scenic lookouts. Now, Barron Gorge National Park is famous for Barron Falls, which is spectacular to see, but I wasn't able to get any images there just because I struggled finding a nice clean composition, but I do recommend going and checking it out. And there was one place in Barron Gorge National Park I kept finding myself returning to, and that would be Stony Creek Road. Now, one area on Stony Creek Road would be Glacier Rock. Now, Glacier Rock is a 6-kilometer return hike that starts at the end of Stony Creek Road, and it goes up through some nice thick jungle. You go across the Canundra Railway Bridge, and then up to the top of Glacier Rock, and there's some really nice views of the surrounding mountains, and even up to the ocean there. Now, the only downside about that view is you do get the town in your images, so you will have the cities below, but which is kind of a shame, but it's still an amazing view and just amazing to see. Definitely worth doing. And there's also the Stony Creek Trek, which starts at the end of Stony Creek Road. Now, this trail takes you past some really nice swimming holes, small waterfalls, and it ends at a decent sized waterfall. But if you keep going about another few miles, there's Stony Creek Falls. Now this way is not too recommended because there is no trail and it could be a little bit dangerous, but I did it about 3 times, and 2 of those were by myself and 1 was for sunset. So one of them I was hiking back in the dark, but it is navigable. You can just kind of follow the river into the falls, then you'll get a nice picture of the falls with a bridge of the Nandroya Railway going across it. Definitely recommended, but definitely travel in a group and make sure you're familiar with off-trail hiking and hiking in Far North Queensland, because there are a lot of bugs and a lot of venomous snakes as well. So if you do attempt to hike to Stony Creek Falls off-trail, just make sure you're taking the correct precautions. Another location about a mile back before the Stony Creek Road ends would be the Smith Trail. Now, the Smith Trail starts with a steep ascent up the side of the mountain, and it's pretty much through jungleless terrain as well. Now, once you get to the top, it follows some nice rivers with a whole bunch of little waterfalls, and this is another one where I just explored the whole area, making sure I was staying next to a river so I wouldn't get lost. But there's plenty of photo opportunities there if you explore, do some long exposures for the waterfalls, and just see what you can get. Location number 4 is Nandroya Falls. Now, Nandroya Falls is about 120 kilometers southwest of Cairns, and it's located in Wooroonurin National Park. That's a pretty fun word to say, but it's an amazing hike. It's about a 6.6 kilometer return hike, and it takes you to a spectacular waterfall. That's probably one of my favorite hikes in all of Australia. I did it about 5 times, and each time was just excellent. It goes again through nice thick jungle. It passes by several waterfalls until you actually get there. And there's also the lower falls and the upper falls. And both of them are just so photogenic and just amazing to shoot. Definitely worth it for the hike and for the waterfalls. Now, location number 5 would be the Waterfall Circuit Drive by Milla. Located about 100 kilometers southwest of Cairns, and also in the Atherton Tablelands. Now, the Atherton Tablelands in a whole is a location worth visiting. Nandroya Falls, as I previously mentioned, and Milla is in the Atherton Tablelands. There's so many small spots to visit in there that the whole thing is definitely worth seeing. But I'm just talking about the Waterfall Circuit right now, so let's get back to it. It's a 17-kilometer loop that takes you past 3 spectacular waterfalls. It's not really a national park because you kind of drive down into the falls and kind of up into this kind of farmland. And the first waterfall would be Milla. It's an 18-meter drop waterfall, and it's the most photographed waterfall in all of Australia. It's an easy walk to the falls from the car park, just a short stroll down some steps, and then you're right there. This is, as I said, it was a famous one, and it was also featured in some commercials, but it is pretty spectacular to see. I was able to get some nice photographs there, and yeah, definitely worth seeing. The second fall you encounter on the drive will be Zilly Falls. Now, Zilly Falls was my least favorite of the 3. It was pretty challenging to photograph. It's just a quick walk to the top of the falls from the car park, or if you're feeling a bit more adventurous, you can kind of scurry down a path, what I did to try and get a picture from the base of the falls. But there are a couple rocks right in the way from the base of the falls, so it is kind of hard to get a nice clean composition, so I did struggle a little bit, but I think I ended up coming away with something alright, but still, definitely another good spot to see on that circuit. And the third fall, my favorite, would be Landacape Falls. Now, Landacape Falls is a 15-meter drop waterfall, and it's down a 200-meter footpath, and it's a pretty spectacular waterfall. There's a river flowing in front of it, and it's got some nice textures in it. It's unobscured, so you can get some really nice shots, especially with the river and all that. And the light just kind of streams right down in it if you're there in a certain time of day. The light does actually reach it because it's not in too thick of jungle, so it's pretty nice. So yeah, that one would definitely be my favorite of the 3, but the whole drive in itself is just worth doing. Maybe spending a half a day or a day doing the drive just to photograph those 3 waterfalls. Now, Far North Queensland was definitely one of my favorite places to live in all of Australia. I spent about 8 months living there, and I had so much fun going out exploring the jungles, the beaches, finding waterfalls, following riverbeds. It was a great place. And as for landscape photography, there's not many places better in the world with such diversity and such stuff that's close. Like especially if you're using Cairns as a hub, that works out really well because you're able to access all the surrounds and really be able to take advantage of all the locations within the vicinity. That's if you visit Far North Queensland and at least visit a few of these spots that I just mentioned, you're sure to get a couple images to add to your portfolio. And I put links in the description below to all the places that I listed because I actually made separate videos on all of these on location photography where I go out with my gear and actually do take photographs of these locations. So if you're interested in that, check it out below. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you found some tips in this video useful, and I'll see you later.